What's up, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with some more fantasy football content. If you are new to the channel, please hit that like button in this video, hit that subscribe button down below, and if you leave a comment, I'll respond to all of your comments as always. All the support really helps out the video, and the interactions helps out with the YouTube algorithm. So, appreciate all the love you guys have been showing the videos recently. Today, we're talking about some more free agency winners. Some guys I didn't get to in the first video, but some guys that really have benefited from the happenings of free agency thus far. So let's get into it with our first player. We've got running back Chris Carson. Now, I think Chris Carson is one of the biggest winners from free agency because I was thinking about Chris Carson going into it. I was like, man, where could he go where, he'd be a win for dynasty owners, or where could he go where he'd be get the ball for sure? Because I didn't think anybody was going to pay him very much money, and I didn't think anybody was, going to make a point of going out and getting him for their workhorse or anything like that. Unless, of course, he went back to Seattle. That was the one location I was like, man, he'd be a stud if he could go back to Seattle. But I didn't see that happening. And then all of a sudden, a few days after free agency started, the market wasn't very high for him. I think Seattle was like, okay, we'll bring him back. We like him. And if the price is right, why not? So he got a new deal, 2 years, $10 million, roughly $5.5 million guaranteed. Not a ton of money, but a solid contract. That's what you're paying about an average NFL starter for most teams. You're looking for that $4 to $5 million in free agency is a solid NFL starter. And I think it's not a ton of money, but you're going out and giving $10 million to a running back. I think you're going to give him the ball, especially when you're on a run-first team and the team has just talked about how much they like him. And the Seattle Seahawks, of course, do want to run the ball this season. They made a point of that with their offseason moves, firing coach Brian Schottenheimer after he was letting Russ cook. Pete Carroll has said that he really wants to get back to running the ball like they did with Marshawn Lynch. That's how he sees them winning more games. And we'll see what happens there. But regardless, I do think they're going to run the ball a lot. And let's look at some of Chris Carson's stats that he's had already on this team. So in 2018, he had 247 carries for 1,151 yards and 20 receptions. Workhorse role that year. And then in 2019, he had 278 carries, good for 1,230 yards and 37 receptions. You can see that uptick in receptions there. That's when they start talking about utilizing him more in the running game, talking about how he's some of the best hands on the team. And then last season, he was down a lot in carries, only had 141 carries, but he still hauled in 37 receptions in 12 games. He was banged up, though. And the team was, as we said, letting Russ cook. They were throwing the ball a ton. But I fully expect with this new theme of the team being pound the ball that Chris Carson is going to get a ton of work this next season. Will he stand up and, his body be able to take 300 carries or close to it like he's been getting? I don't know. But I think you can write him down and stencil him in for 240, 250 carries, right around that range. I think he's going to get that. Maybe, the team will use Rashaad Penny a little bit more coming off that ACL injury, but that is yet to be seen. And we know that they like Chris Carson. And we've seen that Chris Carson's been a value for years in drafts going in the third and fourth rounds. I expect him to be going in that similar range this year. Honestly, if you're grabbing Chris Carson in the third round, back half of the third round, I feel really good about it. Just like I said, I think he's going to get a ton of volume this year, and that is what you're looking for in fantasy football. He's going to get a ton of opportunity. And yeah, that's why he's one of the biggest winners of free agency thus far. Let's get to our next winner, Terry McLaurin. Now, Terry's a winner because he is an extremely talented wide receiver. I don't think people fully understand just how good Terry McLaurin is. His rookie year, he was the highest graded rookie receiver since Odell Beckham Jr. when he had that record-breaking rookie season. And I really do think he is an absolute baller. Let's look at his rookie year. He had 58 receptions for 919 yards on only 93 targets. That was in 2019. And I believe he did that in 14 games as well. And then in 2020, last year, he had 87 receptions, good for 1,118 yards. But that was with Alex Smith for most of the year. Dwayne Haskins started some of those games. They were really all over the place. Kyle Allen was still playing some. There was just a lot of instability at that quarterback position. And not that Ryan Fitzpatrick, their new quarterback they're bringing in, is an absolute stud, but his play style is going to, I think, greatly benefit Terry McLaurin for fantasy football. He likes to throw the ball down the football field. Terry McLaurin is a burner. He's a great route runner as well. But yeah, he's not afraid to throw the ball to his receiver and trust his guys. And I think that's going to be absolutely huge with a guy like Terry McLaurin, who is a stud. If you could be getting Terry McLaurin in that 4th round range, I think that's even a little bit earlier than some people think, but I have no problem taking him in the 4th round because, like I said, I think he's supremely talented. I think he's got a quarterback who's going to force him the ball. He had 87 receptions last year and I think 134 targets, I believe. Him being the number 1, I could see him getting 150 targets this year, somewhere in that range, if Ryan Fitzpatrick starts all the games. And I think Fitzpatrick's going to be pushing the ball down the field. I think the sky is the limit for him. He really is a stud. And they brought in some weapons to take some of the pressure off him. They brought in a guy like Curtis Samuel. They're going to have a full season of healthy Antonio Gibson with a full offseason, who I expect to be utilized more in the passing game. And Curtis Samuel can be used a little bit down the field as well as a gadget guy. Just 2 other players to kind of take some of that pressure off Terry McLaurin. And I know Antonio Gibson was there last year, but he wasn't really being utilized as much in the passing game. And he wasn't being utilized nearly as much in the passing game. And I don't think teams are coming into the season super scared of Antonio Gibson, but I think they'll have a different perception of him this season, especially with how good their offensive line is. Play action is going to be very real with this team. I expect Terry McLaurin to absolutely ball. Don't let this guy pass you by. Draft him, win some leagues. Terry's going to be a household name, I think, after this season. Let's move on to our final player. We've got Melvin Gordon. Now, Melvin Gordon's on this list because Phillip Lindsay left Denver. And I think this is huge for Melvin Gordon. I didn't even really see this as a possibility, to be honest with you, because they originally placed a tender on him, then they rescinded the tender and let him leave in free agency. Now, Melvin Gordon is the new only show in town. Not only was he getting most of the work last year, but now there's nobody else to steal any of that work for him. And Phillip Lindsay was a talented runner, too. We saw what he did in his first 2 years alone in that system, rushing for 1,000 yards both years. I think he was a back-end RB1 both those years. I think Melvin Gordon's skill set for fantasy football is even more valuable than Phillip Lindsay's in that offense. I think we're going to get back to workhorse Melvin. And let's look at what he did last year. He had almost 1,000 yards on 215 carries, which is good efficiency for him, even though the offensive line ranked 25th out of 32 teams, according to PFF. But this year they're going to get back their right tackle, JuWuan, who they paid a lot of money. He opted out last season. I think that'll be a big boost for them because they got some pretty bad right tackle play last season. And they have Mike Munchak, who's one of the best offensive line coaches in football, as their offensive line coach. He was there last year as well, but I just think you get some more talent on that offensive line. You get more time with Mike Munchak. You get a full offseason, hopefully, with Mike Munchak getting to work with some of the younger guys like Dalton Reisner, who they have at guard, and Lloyd Cushenberry at center, who both started off pretty rough last year. But I think, give them some more time with Mike, and he's going to be able to form them into some good offensive linemen. And I'm not saying they're going to be a top 10 unit or anything like that, but the offensive lines that Melvin Gordon was running behind the LA Chargers when he was putting up those stud fantasy football seasons was awful. So I don't think this offensive line is definitely not any worse than those teams. I think they could definitely be better. So yeah, Melvin Gordon, if they don't bring anybody else in, I think he's going to be an absolute workhorse this year. I think you get 250 plus carries, close to 50 receptions. I think that's why they brought him in too. They need a goal line back, and they need somebody who could catch the ball because those were not Phillip Lindsay's skill sets, and he does both of those well. Now that Phillip Lindsay's gone, he's going to get both of those valuable roles as well as just the volume in between to just bridge that gap that could make him just a fantasy beast. And he's a guy I really don't think people are, thinking of as a huge winner from free agency. So Melvin Gordon be a guy in a dynasty league or in redraft I'd be keeping my eye on for sure. He has a nose for the end zone. In 3 of his last 4 seasons, he scored double-digit touchdowns. And the 1 year that he didn't score double-digit touchdowns was that year that he held out for the first 4 games of the season. So, yeah, really, if he had played a full season that year, he probably would have scored had double-digit touchdowns in 4 of the last 4 seasons. He's a guy I think I would be looking to buy and get in on. And then let's look at his pass catching last year. He actually averaged a career low 4.9 yards per reception. And Melvin Gordon is a much better pass catcher than that. His career is 7.9 yards per reception. So I just think it's going to come up drastically from that 4.9 number. Even if, let's say, he has lost half a step and he's less efficient, 4.9 is ridiculously low. He's going to be at least at 6.5 or 7 yards per reception. Bring his receiving yards up, bring those rushing yards up, bring those touchdowns up, put him behind a better offensive line. I don't know if his quarterback play can get much worse than it was last year, to be honest with you. So Melvin Gordon, I think he is a big winner of this free agency period. If you made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below, and I will respond as always. Until next time, this is Fantasy Joe. Peace out.